All right, let's jump in. We're about to unpack an ancient blueprint for a truly compassionate society. I'm talking about a chapter just packed with some pretty radical ideas about money, freedom, and what it really means to be generous.
So get this. What if society had like a giant reset button for money and freedom? Sounds like science fiction, right? Well, it's not. We're going to explore a text that lays out this exact blueprint. A world where financial forgiveness and liberation are literally built into the calendar. Let's dive in.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll walk through it in 4 main sections. First, we've got this wild 7-year reset. Then, we'll talk about having an open hand. After that, we'll see how freedom plays into this every 7 years. And finally, we'll look at some rules about the first and the flawed. Let's get started.
All right, first up, the 7-year reset. This is where our story kicks off, and it starts with a truly revolutionary economic idea. A 7-year cycle that ends with the whole society just releasing all debt.
So, verse 1. This verse basically starts a countdown. Picture a 7-year calendar. For 6 years, everything's normal. People are working, lending, borrowing. But then, boom, year 7 hits. And this isn't just any year. It's called the Lord's Release. It's this massive, society-wide event.
Okay, so what does this release actually look like? Verse 2 spells it out perfectly. It says, every creditor shall release it. You can just picture a hand holding a clay tablet, an IOU, and just snapping it in half. You can't ask for your loan back from your neighbor. It's just gone, wiped clean. Not because you're feeling nice, but because it's called the Lord's release.
Now, verse 3 throws in a really important distinction. This whole debt cancellation thing, it applies to your brother, someone inside your community. But for a foreigner, someone outside the group, the text says you can still require a payment from them. So this rule is really about strengthening the community from within, making sure everyone inside is on solid ground.
So why do all this? Well, verses 4 and 5 give us the stunning goal. There may be no poor among you. I mean, wow. The idea is to completely eliminate poverty. Can you imagine a town where no one is begging, where everyone has enough? But here's the catch. This incredible blessing is promised only if they carefully obey these commands. It's a conditional promise.
And verse 6 shows us the ultimate payoff. It says, you shall lend to many nations, but you shall not borrow. It's like they become the world's bank instead of its debtor. They'll have influence. They'll reign over other nations. It paints this picture of total economic sovereignty, and it's all tied back to how they treat each other at home.
Okay, so we've seen the big picture economic plan. Now let's zoom in a bit. The next section is all about our personal attitude. What's going on inside our hearts when it comes to being generous?
Verse 7 gets right to the point. It's about a choice we all face. It says, you shall not harden your heart nor shut your hand from your poor brother. You can almost see it, right? On one side, a heart turning to stone and a fist clenched tight. On the other, a warm beating heart and a hand that's wide open. The message is simple. Don't be the first one.
And what does that open hand actually do? Verse 8 tells us, it's not about tossing a few coins. It says, you shall open your hand wide to him and willingly lend him sufficient for his need. The image here is of someone literally handing over a huge sack of grain, something that will actually solve the problem, not just put a Band-Aid on it.
Now, verse 9 is amazing because it's so psychologically real. It warns you about a specific wicked thought you might have. Imagine this. Someone asks for a loan, and you look at your calendar and think, wait a minute, year 7, the year of release, is just around the corner. If I lend him this, I'm never getting it back. The text warned you, beware. Don't let that thought make you turn your back on them.
And this leads us straight to verse 10, which is all about the feeling behind the giving. It says your heart should not be grieved when you give. So you give the coin, but you do it with a smile, not a grimace. There's no resentment. Why? Because for this thing the Lord your God will bless you. It's the cheerful attitude itself that unlocks the blessing.
Then we get verse 11, which wraps up this part with a really honest, powerful statement. For the poor will never cease from the land. It's a dose of reality. And because need will always be there, the command is also constant. Therefore, you shall open your hand wide to your brother. It's not a one-time thing. It's a way of life. Okay, let's keep going. We're sticking with this theme of the 7th year, but now the focus shifts. We're moving from money to people, looking at what happens when it's time to grant freedom. So verses 12 and 13 lay out this clear path. If a Hebrew man or woman ends up serving you, they do it for 6 years. Simple enough. But when that 7th year hits, you have to let them go free. And, this is huge, they can't just walk away empty-handed.
Verse 14 shows us exactly what that looks like. You have to supply him liberally from your flock, from your threshing floor, and from your winepress. So picture this person walking away from your house, but their arms are full. They've got a lamb, a big sack of grain, a skin of wine. You're basically giving them a starter pack for their new, independent life.
So why all this generosity? What's the reason? Verse 15 gives this incredibly powerful why. It says, "You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you." It's all about empathy. Their entire national story is about being set free, so they're commanded to pass that freedom on to others. It's personal.
Then verses 16 and 17 cover a really interesting situation. What if the servant says, "You know what? I love it here. I don't want to leave." In that case, there's a ceremony. You take an awl, this sharp tool, and you pierce their ear against the door of your house. It's a permanent, visible sign that they are choosing to belong to your household forever, out of love.
And finally, verse 18 addresses the owner's feelings. It says, "It shall not seem hard to you when you let them go." And why not? Because for 6 years, that person has been worth a double hired servant. Think about that on a scale. 1 bag of coins for a hired hand, 2 for this bond servant. Letting them go with gifts isn't a loss, it's an investment that God promises to bless.
All right, for our last section, the focus shifts one more time. We've talked about debt and freedom, and now we're going to look at the rules for animals, specifically those dedicated to God.
Verses 19 through 22 set up a really clear standard. If you're going to dedicate an animal to God, it has to be the best. The firstborn males, the perfect ones. Those are set aside, you don't work them, you eat them in a special celebration. But what if an animal has a defect, something wrong with it? Well, you absolutely do not sacrifice it. You can still eat it, but just at home, like any regular meal.
And the chapter closes out with verse 23, a final, very vivid instruction. It says, "Only you shall not eat its blood, you shall pour it on the ground like water." So you can just picture it, hands holding a bowl, and instead of drinking, they're pouring the contents out onto the dry ground, letting it soak back into the earth. It's this powerful symbol of returning life to its source.
So when you put it all together, what you have is this incredible blueprint for a compassionate society. It's a world where economics, justice, and empathy are all woven together. Everything is built on these ideas of release, of open-handed generosity, and of never forgetting where you came from. And that kind of leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What would our blueprint for a compassionate society look like today?